post it, people will check it out like the next day or before it goes to the audio stream.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't tell anyone.
All right, you're good.
Wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here, you are there, and you are now rocking with the best. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Airey Bros Radio Live. Tonight we're lacing them up and we're heading down to Columbia, Missouri to dive into all things Tiger Cross Country and get a full preview of the 2025 NCAA Championship straight from the host site, Gans Creek, with Mizzou head cross country and distance coach Kyle Levermore. But before we get rolling, y'all know the drill. Make sure you hammer that like button and are subscribed on YouTube. Drop a comment. Every view, review, and share helps us grow and give back to the sports we love. And as always, this episode is fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultramarathon and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget why we're here. We're here to shine a light on the programs, coaches, and athletes we wish we had access to growing up while we were going through the recruiting process. If you love college running, coaching culture, and stories about program building, this one is for you. On to tonight's guest. As we mentioned, Coach Kyle Levermore is joining us this evening. He's helping lead the charge at Missouri in cross country and track and field. He's a Mahwah, New Jersey native. Kyle ran at the University of Oregon and at the University of Arkansas. He earned all SEC honors and later earned his master's degree in sports industry management from Georgetown before joining Mizzou. He's coached 13 All-Americans, 20 Big East champions, and helped shape one of the top 10 recruiting classes in the nation, all while helping position Missouri to host this year's NCAA Cross Country Championship. Currently, the Tiger men are ranked 22nd and the women are ranked 23rd. Without further ado, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Coach Kyle Levermore, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we are stoked to get into it. We love talking with our Jersey people, so this will be a good conversation. Coach,
Yeah.
before we get too far along, anywhere you would like to send recruits, parents, anyone that might have question about the Tigers, anything you would like to plug or promote, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think give us a follow, Mizzou Track and Field on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is Mizzou XCTF, and then we do actually have a account that is just for the distance group, Ms. Distance XC, that we run a little bit more for recruiting and kind of behind the scenes with the distance program. So if you're interested in our program, follow us there. And then you're welcome to follow myself and my assistant coaches on Instagram as well. My handle on Instagram is my name, and on Twitter it is Kyle_Lev.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes for you. And I would also say, folks that are listening, go check out the most recent video on Flow Track where Kyle gave a tour of the facilities and all the awesome things that they have available for the cross country and distance runners at Missouri. So check that out as well. Coach, we've got two very important questions. These are going to be probably the most important questions we're going to ask you all evening. The first one is, and I think I might know the answer to this, but you never know. We get surprised from time to time. Is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
Oh, it was Taylor Ham. I'm from North Jersey.
That's what we
He's
thought.
like offended,
Yeah,
Rich.
Although I will say my family is from Philly. Like I'm actually the only person in my family that did not grow up in like the Center City, Greater Philadelphia area. So if you asked my family, while they are Pennsylvania people, they would say probably pork roll because they're Margate. If you know New Jersey, you know down the shore is where you associate. And we are Margate people. So
Okay.
they are probably in the pork roll, but I grew up in Bergen County, so I'm a Taylor ham guy.
Your team Taylor ham for sure in Bergen County.
Yeah.
And then the other question, we never know what we get with this one. You are a North Jersey guy. We are from the shore. Is Central Jersey a real place?
No.
We're 0 for 2 tonight, Jim.
We are.
No. North Jersey is over the bridge and South Jersey is on the other side of the bridge. Whatever the one in, what is it? Not the stat.
We know which one you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
You
It's
know
the
the
one
one.
like kind of in the
Raritan.
orange. The one before the city, kind of I guess it's the Staten Island, East
Yeah.
Orange, that one.
Yeah. Okay. We got it. We're there with you. That's why we used to say Central Jersey, but now we're more inclined to say we're from the shore. So that,
Yeah, you're from North Jersey or from the shore?
yeah, we're from the shore. So, Coach, the way we like to kick things off here, we all have our origin stories to the sport. how did you find running? How did you get into it? And how did that lead you to Don Bosco? And then from there, how did that lead you into coaching?
Oh goodness. I started running because it was kind of what the thing everyone on the street was doing. The town I grew up in had a really at the time it felt like a really robust recreational sport program. And I guess a lot of places have that, but it felt like we had access to kind of every sport at the town recreation level. So I played soccer, basketball, and then I ran track when I was really little. And then I kind of tried everything for a really long time, and everyone on the street was playing soccer and running track as like kind of all of us, and we were all close in age. So it became kind of this thing that I did because the people around me were doing. Um, and then I just started to really, really fall in love with it. And I think it took me time to really figure out what I loved about the sport, but I always found myself like looking forward to running. And my parents were really disciplined about not letting me do one thing early. And so until I was in high school, I played soccer and ran rec cross country. I would go from a rec cross country meet to play in midfield, and then they would give me a break by putting me in goal.
Mhm.
And then in the winter, I actually stopped playing basketball. I have zero hand-eye coordination. So that was the one thing they let me stop doing was basketball and baseball. But I was like an avid ski racer actually. So I ski raced. Um, for like 4 nights a week growing up in the winter, and then would run track in the outdoor season or in the spring. And then in the summer I did swimming and diving, like rec swimming and diving. And it got to the point where like the older I got, the more I was trying to like squeeze running in around my other activities. Um, and to the point where like I would run to swim practice because I wanted to run, and my parents weren't going to let me like kind of bail on the season because I would always try to like, oh, it was swim season, like I don't want to run anymore. And then it became, well, if I have to do this, I'm going to run to swimming. um and then by the time I got to high school, that was the first time I really specialized in anything, was when I started high school. But yeah, I honestly I had really good coaches when I was young. My godfather was also my neighbor, and his daughter was a couple of years older than me. Um, and she's like, I call her my sister. But I think what kind of happened when I was young was that actually in my town there was this group of like maybe 10 or 12 of us that they kind of identified as like maybe they're a little better than everyone else. We started to kind of have our own little group. And yeah, I ended up wanting to go to Don Bosco, honestly, because I knew the reputation of the coaching there. And I grew up closer to Don Bosco than I did to my public high school. So funny story about Don Bosco. I don't know if I've ever told this. People know it, but I don't know if I've ever told it publicly. I actually got rejected. I applied and I got rejected, and that's pretty hard when you're 14. Um, but I emailed my high school coach, the guy who ended up coaching me in high school. He's a science teacher, and I was like, I want to go here and I want to run for you. Like, is there any way that admissions would reconsider like letting me into high school? And he put in a
Let me
couple good
check your
words.
times.
What's that?
Let me check your times.
Honestly, like I hate to say it this way, but like I kind of by the time I was 13 or 14 had a little bit of a reputation of like
Yeah.
there's this kid in the area that's pretty good. Um and yeah, and so he emailed admissions and he emailed me back and he was like the admissions director will meet with you. And I went to the admissions meeting by myself when I was like 13 or 14 years old at Bosco, and I was like, what do I have to do to get in? I was like, just tell me what you need to see from me to like get me into this school. Um, and so yeah, I actually like got rejected and got myself in because I was like, I have to run for this coach. And had a really, really tremendous career at Bosco. Was just super fortunate to walk into a program that had a culture and had older guys that could push me and had older guys that also like really like took me in as a brother, but treated me like a true little brother. Like they made me earn my stripes. And yeah, I also had a coach that he held me to a really high standard because he knew what I was capable of. And, we had goals that, he and I talked about every year of high school that I wanted to achieve. And yeah, I left Bosco with 4 individual state championships and was one of, I think, five guys at the time who had won the 2 mile and the mile in New Jersey. And so, yeah, I was fortunate to have a really, really good high school career. But, I look back on it now and I think it was like the culture and the coaching and the development that really made a difference. And I always tell people, like, I went to a high school program that pushed us really, really hard. Like they really did have that like element that people probably are scared of. But I at no point left there burnt out. Like I left there so well educated on what the demands of this sport were at the highest level. And we were pushed really hard based on how good we wanted to be. And so yeah, I did in a lot of ways go to like a sports factory high school, but I went to one where I left there like we were not burned out. We were just held to a high standard. And I think there's a difference. Like there's a difference between physically just beating the crap out of people versus having an environment that has high standards and high demands. And yeah, I'm really fortunate that I got to benefit from that type of environment when I was that young.
Coach, did you send that email on your own without any
Yeah,
like,
it was my
yeah?
own. I asked my mom to if I could send an email. Like I've always kind of been that way. When I want something, I've always found a way to like, I'll take no for an answer, but I'm not going to take no for an answer until I figure out every angle of it.
Okay. And I'm curious, we're short conference guys, so we've very familiar with CBA. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what is at Don Bosco, what is the perception or uh, I guess maybe mindset around Christian Brothers Academy? Are you guys, is it friendly rivalries or because I can remember
It's in
back in the
between.
day, like the Don Bosco guys running around Homedale Park in the middle of November, shirts off, chest painted, like beating a drum and all the crazy stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of it. I think when I entered Bosco, part of the reason I wanted to go there actually was so every year, the 5 years prior to me starting high school, they were reigning state champions. Um, and they had made the Nike national meet twice in those 5 years. And so we were actually kind of like my freshman year, we were the team to beat. But 2 of the 4 years I was in high school were 2 of the 4 years Christian Brothers won the national title. And so I actually stepped into the program at Bosco at a year where, like, as a freshman, I probably shouldn't have needed to run varsity, but I did because of the people who had graduated. And so my freshman year was the first year they lost the state title in 5 years. And I really wanted to be the person that brought a team title back to Bosco, and we were runner up, I think, 4 times in my 4 years. But I think that like the attitude was one of like, man, they're good and they're really good, and we have to beat them all the time. Like we had to run against them all the time, and when you're that age, of course, there's like the rivalry, like screw those guys kind of rivalry, like we hate them. Um, I think that's natural when you're a young guy in a high school setting, but I think at the deep down, like we did respect each other. We did respect that, we were as good as we were because we were pushed to that level. Like I became as good as I did in high school because I had to run against the top kids in the state because a lot of them were Christian Brothers kids or in non-public A. And so when I got to the state meet, I wasn't scared of anyone. Like I'd run
Mhm.
against all the top guys already and either beaten them or come close to it. And so I think there was definitely like the disrespect element of like, yeah, fuck you, you're my rival. But at the same time, when you look back on it, like I became friends with a lot of those guys. I've got a funny story about one of them if we touch into, if we dive into my college career actually.
All right. Well,
Um, but yeah, I guess I'll just tell you since I set the table. But so I went to Oregon. I signed with Oregon. Things weren't it wasn't the right fit for me. I stayed there 2 years, and I decided it was time for a change. But actually, when I when I transferred, I had signed a lease, and I really wanted to make sure that my roommate, wasn't let to dry. And when you're an athlete, it's important to kind of have someone like-minded living with you. And so. I was talking to my coach there and I was like, hey, who's coming in? Like, is there anyone you're bringing in that I can maybe turn my lease over to? And I actually turned my lease over to someone that I was rivals with from CBA, Tim Gorman. He ended up living in my room and had a great year that year at Oregon. But when I left a Don Bosco t-shirt under the bed because I knew he was gonna be living in my room.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and we became friends. Like I saw him a lot the next year and I'd known him from high school. He was 2 years older than me. But I ran against him a lot, and so I left a Don Bosco t-shirt hidden in the room when I transferred.
Did you ever hear about it after that?
I feel like we did talk about it. I think after the fact I told him, or like he like saw it and thought it was funny. I don't remember. We did talk about it at some point.
That's
That's
awesome.
hilarious.
I love
Yeah.
that, Coach. Coach, what are your thoughts on Homedale Park?
I like it. I never had a problem with it. I think it's one of those places that's historic and it's got an allure to it. Like it has a history to it. It has kind of these like big physical like course features that are demanding and scary and kind of put people on their toes going into races. And I think you need that. Like there's an element of psychological like stress going into races that people respond differently to. Um, and for me, I thought like his the history and like the difficulty that it kind of portrayed like truly made it feel like you had to earn something there. And I don't know. I actually always really enjoyed running there. I never thought it was a course that was like I really liked running there. I think in college I wish I'd had the chance to go back and see how fast I could have run there just a couple years later. Because I think it's a good like it's not that hard a course. There's a couple things that people think are hard, but like strip it down, it's really not that bad. I've run a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your high school PR there? Did you?
1550 something.
Okay, good.
Not fast compared to
Fast.
what they run there now.
I'd take a
I got
15.
hurt. I actually got hurt in between my junior and senior year in September of
Mhm.
my senior year, and so I didn't run until like 2 weeks before the state meet, and I still somehow ran faster than I did as a junior. So I
Wow.
always kind of wondered what I would have run because I did run faster than I did as a junior, but I also like missed 5 weeks in September of
Not
my
bad.
senior year of high school. So I don't know. I always thought it was a good place, and I don't think they should ever change it because it's got history to it.
So you did a PG at Georgetown, but you also got your master's in sports industry management. Where does coaching come in? Did you know when you got the PG that I'm gonna wind up coaching?
Yeah, so I was actually a full-time coach at Georgetown for four
Oh,
years.
my bad. My bad.
I started there as a I was hired my first year there I was hired as a grad assistant.
All right.
And I finished my master's and then they like made me a full-time staff member. Basically as a grad assistant you are a full-time staff member. You just are paid through your stipend and you have to go to school. Um, but yeah, so the way that I actually got into coaching, I my four years of college, I kind of set myself up to work in sports marketing, and my bachelor's is in advertising. Um, my last internship in college, in between my junior or into my senior year and my fifth year, I ended up working with Hoka in Flagstaff, and I worked with Northern Arizona Elite, which was Ben Rosario's team at the time. And actually, that summer we did a lot of really cool stuff. But I pitched myself to Ben through an email and I was like, hey man, I'm really looking for an internship, but I also want to spend this last summer of my running career at altitude. I was like, I'm not looking for pay. I was like, but if you find me a place to live, like I'll work for free, basically. And he emailed me back and was like, I would love to have an intern, but I have no interest in a coaching intern. I'm really looking for more someone on the business side. And I was like, well, I'm a PR and advertising major and I don't really want to coach. Like I kind of want to do exactly what you're looking for. And so he found me a place to live was one of the athletes on the team had a pretty big house and was, known for kind of renting out rooms to athletes during stays in flag. Um, and so that summer I ended up like my day to day was in the morning I would help Ben with training. In the afternoon we go sit at a coffee shop and work on the brand. And or actually like, we would record their podcast or like we that summer Jim Walmsley was doing something crazy. I remember we recorded a podcast with him that summer. So I kind of got a accidental front row seat to what coaching was looking like and went back to into my fifth year of college being like, I really want to do this, but I'm really scared of like the financial instability. Like it's really hard. Coaching can be really hard right off the bat. Um, and so my mom had told me, she was like, hey, if you graduate and you don't like you're not in school, like you're on your own. And I was like, shit, I guess I gotta like do something about this. So I actually did not want to go to grad school. I picked what I picked in college because I was like, well, I don't have to go to grad school if I have a major that's functional. Like I don't have a philosophy degree. And so I was like, I guess I'll apply to grad school, which is what I wasn't going to do. So I applied to Georgetown. I applied to like 10 grad programs that I also thought if I got in and I could reach out to the coaches, they would let me either grad assistant or volunteer, but I could do myself a favor by telling them I'd already been accepted into grad school at that university. So I applied to the program at Georgetown, being like, this is a great program. It's a great university. It's got a great reputation academically. If I get in and like this is also a place I'd want to work with this staff. I had two really close friends that worked there, that went to school there for undergrad and ran there. And so I actually landed in a really good position at Georgetown where I was able to get my master's in my first year or so of coaching, and it was also COVID, so it like gave me something to do. My first year of coaching was like the back half of COVID, which was or not the back half. It was my first year of coaching was like 9 months of normal, then COVID, so it was good to be in grad school then.
Occupy your time.
Yeah.
So, Coach, how is the season been going for you guys? You guys are ranked 22nd on the men, 23rd on the women. Are you right where you thought you would be, or ahead of schedule?
Yeah, I think we're we're where I think we should be. I took over this program 3 years ago, so 2023 was my first year here, and like a big reason why I wanted why I pursued this opportunity was the opportunity to recruit in this conference, knowing that we had a national championship to kind of give them something, like give recruits something to latch onto. And, we were awful my first year here. I think we were like ninth in the SEC and like 13th in the region on the men's side. And I don't know, maybe even worse on the women's. We were bad. Um, but I knew that if we were hosting a championship and we were in the SEC and there's a history here, like I trusted my ability to recruit and get our program to a point where I thought 3 years from now we can have a legitimate chance to be, a top 25 team in the country and be on the line at our home course. And like I didn't want to be at that. I don't want to be there in a month without us on the line. We still have to finish the job. But I think that it's been a 3 year build to this point. And what I mean by that is more so it's been a 3 years or 2 years of getting the right people in the room, getting a culture reestablished that needed a lot of change, changing the outlook of people who were in the program and teaching them while bringing new people in. And so we are exactly where we need to be, I think, in terms of this season. Yeah, I'm really pleased with where we're at. I think we've run well on the outside, and internally, I feel like we've had a lot of conversations about little changes we can make. And I think when you're coming out of a regular season feeling like you've done a lot of things really, really well, but you also have things that you can make small adjustments on that will make big differences, that's kind of what you need going into a championship. Like when it's too perfect going in, it's just pressure. And when there's no momentum, it's desperation. And so
Mhm.
I think when you're in the sweet spot of like things have gone well, but things haven't gone well enough for us to get too high or get too low. Um, I feel like we're in a very, very kind of like calm groove where we know exactly what we're working on. And, people have from the outside been like, man, things are going really well. And we're like, yeah, they are, but we think they can go better.
Right on. And from a recruiting perspective, over the past 3 years, have you been able to tap into your Jersey roots at all? Have you gone that far east, or are you kind of sticking in that like Midwest zone?
It's hard to get people from the Northeast, um, or harder to get people from the Northeast than it is the West. So I think with recruiting and with building a program or building a recruiting class, it starts with obviously identifying your needs in recruiting. That's step one is like, kind of what am I looking for? But also knowing like where you're gonna find those people that are actually gonna give you not the time of day, but maybe like they're gonna have the right amount of interest for you to pursue. And so it's not that I haven't tried with the Northeast. We brought people in from New York or Pennsylvania or New Jersey, or we've made those calls. But I think that the personality profile is a little bit different. And I think that the that's where like growing up, I actually kind of felt like an outlier. Like I didn't value the same things that some of my peers did when it came to selecting colleges or things like that, and it kind of showed where I went. Um, but I think, more so I don't try as hard to be honest with you because I feel like I can find similar talent um, it actually makes more sense for them to want to come here. I'll reach out to kids if I think they're good and they're in the Northeast and I'll try, but often like I feel like it's a little bit of a lukewarm situation. Mostly because a lot of Northeast kids are interested in the East Coast.
Hmm. Yeah, we're finding kids don't like to leave their bubble as much, but maybe when they
Yeah.
see that video with those pretty sweet facilities and that awesome cross country course, that might change the perspective a little bit. We're big on getting out of your comfort zone and seeing the world, and you can always go back to your bubble, but like get out of it for a little bit and go see some new things. Get a
Yeah,
little bit more
I tell
worldly.
recruits this all the time, especially when I bring recruits that, I recruit from everywhere. But when we bring recruits in that are from somewhere very different or somewhere that's maybe a little bit further, I will always tell people like the best thing I ever did for myself was go to Oregon when I was 18. And then when I was 20, moved to Arkansas. Like, who moves from New Jersey to Oregon to Arkansas? But it's the best thing I ever did, like getting out of that bubble. And so I try to push that a little bit with recruits is like, hey, I know it's scary, but like from someone who did it, like, trust me, this is a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
When it comes to recruits, I see that you guys have some international athletes on the roster, and we always talk to coaches about this. What is your perspective of recruiting international athletes, and how do you reach out to them? Do you have contacts? Do you use what's it called,
Scholar
Rich?
book.
Scar Book, anything like that?
We work with two different agencies that help us with, a little bit of like talent identification. We do work with one of the ones in Africa or in Kenya specifically, but we also work with them in other North African countries. Um, my perspective on recruiting is always like I've one of my sophomores is from Columbia, Missouri. He was a top 10 kid in the country. And I always say to the people in Missouri, like we want to keep the best kid in state home. I want to give you a reason to stay home. And if you don't stay home, I also want it to be a really hard decision. Um, Again, you also kind of get people who want to leave home, so that can be a little challenging with local athletes. But I always start with Missouri, like the best kid in Missouri that meets our standards, and I think that's the important part. Is like if you meet the level required for the SEC for the NCAA and you're in state, then we want you here. Like we're not just going to bring anyone on, but we work regionally, so Missouri, then Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Arkansas, Tennessee, we work outwards. Um, but my job is to compete at this level, and my job is to make sure that the teams that we put on the line, the athletes that we put on the line, are performing at the level required. And we're going to recruit wherever you're from. I don't really care where you're from. I recruit based on what we need. What is a hole in our program, and how can you have a role in our program that allows you to feel like you're making a significant contribution? And so we monitor the World U20 list. We monitor the Power at 10, which is kind of like the British equivalent to TFRS or mile split. It's the British system list. We monitor the European descending order lists. I monitor, I've flown abroad to Australia to recruit. So um, my philosophy is that we're gonna bring the best people that fit our program together and fit our philosophy together. And if you're from Missouri or you're from Australia or you're from Kenya or Germany, I want to bring the right people in the room. And so I don't really care where you're from as long as you fit the values of our program. And I think diversity is a beautiful thing. I think diversity is required in order to maximize your ability. And so I think there's a lot of unnecessary conversation in the NCAA about, you want to talk about Scholar Book. Like what Scholar Book is doing is changing the lives of student athletes. It's changing the lives of people. And, um, you know, my job as a coach is I guess my job as a coach in the NCAA in particular is to help you perform at the highest level, to push you to figure out what you're capable of and see how far we can take that and make sure that you go home with an education and you have, I always tell recruits, I can't promise you an NCAA title. I can't promise you an SEC title. I can't promise you an All-American certificate, but I'll promise you you're going to go home with a degree. And I'll promise you that you're going to get a degree that's going to help you change your life. And you can be as critical as you want and say whatever you want, but there's a part of me that feels like it's maybe more impactful for a Kenyan athlete to come over and earn a degree and get the opportunity to compete against this level of competition. And what's that degree going to do for them when they go back to support their whole family? And so I'm a fierce defender of the fact that our job is to give people an opportunity to challenge themselves and to be there with them through every bit of that and send them home with a way to better their life long term. And I think that if I'm doing that, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're going to bring something to our group that's going to add value.
Kyle, standing ovations, sir. Rich, I think we just got a clip there. You don't know how many negative comments we get on YouTube when we have coaches on and people talk about, oh, why don't you recruit Americans? Oh, you're doing it with all foreign athletes. Rich and I don't want to speak for Rich, but we're in the same boat as you. And I think you just nailed that. The other question I have off of that is, do any of the foreign athletes or international athletes, excuse me, have trouble adapting, or because you guys have all the facilities and you're in the location that you're in, it's not that big of a deal?
I think it depends on different people are going to adapt differently. I think with any athlete who's moving away from home, the time change is obviously hard. You have to learn to talk to your family. Like I see a lot of I know a lot of the Australians, like sometimes they come to practice and they're on FaceTime as they get there because they're saying goodnight to their families or, maybe that part is hard for everyone. Um, I think with, a British athlete or a German athlete or I'm naming countries we have here, um, or an Australian or a Kiwi, it's less of an adjustment because there's more of a familiarity from home. But with our African athletes or, any African country, it would be no different if we had an Asian athlete from China or Japan or India or somewhere like that. I think the biggest thing that is an adjustment is the food. And so some people adjust differently. Like some people aren't picky and they're okay. Some of my athletes have adjusted really smoothly and food hasn't been an issue. Some it has been. So I think it's person to person, but they all go through the same stuff. Like it's the same as when you move away when you're 18 to the other side of the US. Like what you do as a coach and what we do with our resources is show them that they don't have to figure it out alone. But they're still going to have to figure stuff out. They're still going to have to learn these things. But if I can provide them hey, if you need this, you don't need to wonder how to get it. Here it is. And so it's person to person. But with our Kenyan athletes, the initial adjustment is showing them, kind of where they can get the food they get. I'm very familiar with the African store in Columbia, Missouri.
A lot of Ugali coming out of there. Or
Uh,
Ugali.
Ugali, chapati, greens, you name it. The first night they were here, our Elijah, Miriam, and Monica, who were the three that we brought over in January, they got here in a snowstorm and came to my house the first night they were here and cooked. So yeah, like we, I love it. I think it's great that they get that, ability to, they cook for the team. They have people over at their house. They live with the team and so it's good for them to see, the team to get that experience. And they all we have a lot of international kids. They have international food nights. It's great.
That's awesome. How do the warm weather athletes, how do they adapt or how do they handle the Missouri winters?
I mean, every year I've lived here, the winter is different.
Yeah.
We went from 95 degrees 2 weeks ago to winter this week. So I don't know. We skipped fall here. But yeah, I think it was hard for them initially. We're really lucky we have the indoor track and the treadmills but typically Missouri, like you can run outside. It's like 35, 40 most of the winter. It's just if it gets gusty. I know
Mhm.
from if you're in Oklahoma, you know what the wind
Yeah.
can be like.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I
But it's actually pretty temperate here. Like I would say it's more temperate than it is extreme.
okay. Okay. Um SECs are around the corner, right? Is it this week
It
or next
is. We
week?
head out on Wednesday to Knoxville.
Okay. How's everything going this week?
It's been good. I think we're all just a little more antsy than usual to get out of town because we don't ever spend 2 months competing and racing at home. Like that's not normal for us. Usually we've gotten out of town like at least once at this point. So I think everyone's pretty excited to get out of town and race on a different course. I think, we came off of pre-nationals feeling like we had good stuff to work on. but also pretty excited that the next time we were going to race, we weren't going to run the same course that we've been racing and training. So it's, I think for us, it's a mentally a really good boost to get out of Columbia the next, two times we race. And we're excited. I think something I said last year was that our team was young and we weren't lacking talent, but we lacked experience. And I think we're still young, but we don't lack experience as much anymore. And so I think the fact that kind of what I mentioned when we were getting started about we feel like there's ways that we can be better, but also we've had everyone in our lineup has been at these championships before and by and large had some amount of success in the last 2 years at a championship. And so I think it's provided like this calmness where I think we're all really excited to get there. And yeah, shit, I haven't even thought about Friday to be honest with you. So I guess I'm good too.
Yeah. Now with SECs and then regionals, is the mindset still put everything on the line at SECs and then circle the wagons and get ready for regionals and do the same thing?
Yeah, I think, what we've talked about a lot with our program, and I'll say it now because there's like not anything anyone can do about it. Had you had me on a month ago, I might have been a little quieter. But I've said to them for the last 2 months, like our job is to do ourselves favors. Like when we compete, we got to beat these teams to do ourselves favors when it comes to national qualifying. And if we want to be on the start line in a month, what do we got to do to get there? And we've done ourselves a lot of favors with qualifying points, with at-large points. We've run well in big championship style races. So yeah, like we feel like we can be really, really competitive. Like I don't think there's a reason we can't have two teams in the top five, or top four. And we're going in there feeling like we know how to beat the people that we have to beat. That's the other thing. We've seen a lot of our competitors already this season, and feel like if we didn't beat them, we know how to beat them. And if we've beaten them thus far, we feel like we can turn the screw again and beat them more soundly. So I'm excited, but it's the SEC. Like anything can happen on the day, and we're gonna have a plan that's gonna work for us. And if we execute it, I'm sure we'll go home happy. And if we don't execute it, then it gives us something to stay hungry for.
And from a regional perspective, are you guys in the same region with Oklahoma State?
Yep, we are. Midwest is loaded. I think, yeah, again, we have to finish the job. We have to go run. We don't have to run over the top. We just have to run like at the same level we've been running all year and we'll be good to go. But no, you don't count your chickens before they hatch. And, we'll go in with a plan and we'll go in knowing that this is what we need to do to get the job done and we'll take care of business. But, I don't think that anyone's like writing the regional off is not important in any capacity. Like we know what we have to do to make sure that we don't, you know, do anything, don't cause ourselves any problems.
Coach, you seem like a pretty busy guy, and to add to all that, you guys are hosting the NCAAs this year. How has that added to your workload?
I don't know that it's added like any like heavy lift. Like I'm not like sitting here slaving over like paperwork or anything. I think, it's kind of been 3 years or 2 years. I keep saying three because it's year three, but it's only been 2 full years. But um we we've really been methodical about everything we've done over the last 2 years with our hosting, with our post event, we send out a survey from every one of our home meets to get information back on things that other coaches think we could do better. And so I give a lot of credit and almost all the credit to the Columbia Parks and Recs team. They maintain the course. They're the ones that do all the course setup. Mizzou does a lot of the day of setup, and our events team does a great job in coordination with the city. But my biggest role in all of this is kind of like a marketing consultant, which is fun actually for me. I get to enjoy, kind of like getting a little bit of a hand in that. I don't have to do any of the execution. I just kind of get to brainstorm and help. I think, prior to working at Mizzou, when I worked at Georgetown, I was actually also working full time in marketing, but on a remote basis. And did some. I was the brand manager for the DC Half Marathon. So I kind of get to fill my cup a little bit with my business brain, and enjoy, getting to do that. So hasn't been too bad. Like figuring out how to seed 95 teams for the Gans Creek Classic was a little bit of a puzzle that had to work on. But I'm excited. Like I give most of the credit to the people around me.
So you mentioned getting help with a little bit of the marketing. How much of your education do you use on a day-to-day as a coach?
Oh man. Like a decent amount. I feel like the SEC, part of the reason I like coaching in this conference so much is you have a super high powered, obviously, athletic standard. The SEC is the gold standard in that sense. I love the intensity of this conference. I'd live for the intensity of what this conference demands. But I also really, really love the business side of the sport. I genuinely love sports business. Like if I didn't coach, I think I would have just as much time working or just as much fun spending my time in sports marketing or in some sort of sports business. So I think actually with like a lot of the changes that have happened in the last 2 years with the NCAA and recruiting, like I use a lot of what I've learned. Marketing is applicable in every situation. Like marketing as a concept is it's knowing how to take those principles and apply them to your world. And so I feel like I do actually get to use a lot of like maybe the broader picture of what um, you know, I've learned educationally and apply it, and I find that really fun. I'm actually also working on my MBA, and so I feel like a lot of stuff that like I directly learn in class. We just did stuff in my business strategy class on five forces, and I was like, I need to do this with recruiting. Like I need to do this with my recruiting and my and the programs we're up against, and so I actually really do feel like I pull stuff in all the time.
So, coach, you're a full-time coach and you're working on your MBA right now?
Yeah, man, I need something to do so I don't look at training all the time. It's actually like again, you say it's like it's honestly like an enjoyable distraction for me.
Okay. All right. Um, what the heck was I gonna say? I totally spaced there for a second. Well, talking about looking at training all the time or not being having a distraction from looking at training all the time. Um, where are the Tigers when it comes to the world of double threshold training?
We are subscribers. We definitely, it's been methodical. I am very much someone who comes from a strength-based system, and I understand how double threshold is beneficial. Um, but it also took time to develop our athletes to the point where double threshold was beneficial. And I think that's the thing is understanding how this actually benefits me. And so we don't do double threshold with everyone. We don't do double threshold just to do it. We don't throw freshmen into it right away. I don't throw low mileage athletes into it right away. It's something that if you build up the volume in your weekly training and you build up that durability, and I've seen that you can be consistent, in training, then it's something we bring to the table. So last year I brought it in with the men only, and we were doing it every other week or every third week, and still kept a lot of our core strength principles. And then in the spring we started doing it more frequently, and now we are on a cadence where we typically do like 3 weeks of double threshold and then 1 week of a long tempo. Or if we do a long tempo as one of or like a moderate tempo as one of our double sessions, then maybe we do it 4 weeks in a row. But I still am very disciplined with myself about how much I just throw it into things. And um, I also am a big believer in, not everything is going to look the same from person to person, but also team to team. So stuff I did last year with some of them, I haven't done as much this year. And, it's like last year, I would do a lot of, maybe a 7 mile, like moderate run in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we come back and do, 8 times a K or 10 times 800 or something like that with two truly like aerobic sessions. Where this year we've done a lot more of like, getting more quality out of our morning session where we maybe are instead of doing, just like 6 by mile in the morning, pretty moderate, we might do a little bit more. Or we might push 12K or 13K of work in the morning and then come back. And I've actually shifted some of our afternoon sessions to be a little bit more shorter and kind of tempo-y where we, are working a little bit more on the maybe we do like 12 times 400 instead of a bunch of slower stuff. So, but that's also because this is what I felt like this team needed versus last year's team. So again, I think that's the art of it is like you can do these double sessions, but like how are you implementing double sessions and how are they benefiting your personnel? And I think every coach will tell you like That's the art of coaching is taking all the stuff you know and putting it out there for the, with the right mix of stuff for people.
Rich, I got one more for Kyle before we get in the final four if you don't have anything else.
Go for it. I
I
might have one more.
All right. I'm curious, being in the SEC, NIL is all the rage. How does that work with you guys and the Tigers, and how do you guys handle that?
I mean, I think for us recruiting is um like if you're someone that's good enough for NIL, then there's an opportunity for us to put that on the table. But I don't direct that. So I think my goal in recruiting is to bring people to the table that when they make a decision, this is where they want to be regardless of the money. And that's something that doesn't fly well with some of the high schoolers right now. Like they want everything in the kitchen sink, and I'm not going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you if you're not going to come in and be able to perform in the SEC, because a scholarship is not a reward. A scholarship is an investment. And if you can't produce in NCAA, if you can't be a first team All-American as a freshman coming out of high school, and there are high schoolers that have shown they can run at that level. Like there's people, a Sadie Engelhart, she'll come out of high school and she'll be able to run at a super high level and probably be an All-American this year individually. That's someone that, if I'm investing 100% in you, 100% means you can produce at the national level. You can produce at the NCAA level. It's the same thing with the SEC. And so for us, like, we want to reward you for what you've done, but you also have to understand the amount of money that we're investing in you, and that requires that all of us do our part in this. So when if you're a top tier athlete and you can do that, then NIL is on the table and so is a full scholarship. But I always believe, you got to invest in yourself if you want to see the outcome, really pay off. And so we don't just like hand out money here as a reward for what you've done in high school. And maybe that is a reason why we don't always have like these big flashy high school classes, but we get the right high schoolers. Like I'm really happy that we have Ethan Zuber. He was two-time Iowa Gatorade Runner of the Year, like a 3 or 4 time Iowa State champion in cross country. Chose to come here over Oklahoma State and somewhere else, I forget. But it came down to us in Oklahoma State, and he realized this was the right fit for him with the right people, and it wasn't about who was throwing what money at him, and that's how we recruit. So NIL is here, and if you were good enough, NIL is an opportunity for you.
Have you crushed kids' souls at the kitchen table?
Yes.
I can tell.
But I am not someone that like, and maybe you've picked it up already. Like I'm not someone who's just like an asshole to be an asshole, but I'm also not someone who's gonna lie to you. Like I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear. And I think I do that pretty nicely. And so I've definitely had people sit across from me and you can see in their eyes like they've checked you off their list because they thought they were gonna get a full scholarship. And that's not like you haven't run close to the level that's required for that. And so um sometimes they get really disappointed, but also sometimes you get people who are like, "Oh, well, at least you explained to me how you invest in people." And it actually like sometimes it's a help, sometimes it's a benefit. And I actually prefer that. I prefer the person who's like, "Oh, okay, I see what you're saying." And I always tell them too, like, first of all, money is money. It doesn't matter what it's titled. So if you get a crap ton of campus money, don't let your ego get in the way. You're getting a ton of money from campus. Do you want to be here or not? I'll figure out a way to make sure that with a combination of money, you're paying not a lot to go here, but I want you to be here because you want to be here. And so I'm very, very transparent and very blunt, and I don't try to like I'm not someone who just like tries to sell you something and then have to walk it back. I'm just pretty honest about who we are and what we want to do here.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'll be sold. It's that jersey, Rich.
It is that
I
jersey.
will say, so my boss is from State College. Our director, Coach Halter's from State College, and one of my assistant coaches, Paige, she went to Boston College and is from Long Island. So Paige and I actually grew up like the same distance from Midtown Manhattan, just on different sides of
Mhm.
of the island. And so we've got some East Coast on our team, and I will tell you, there are people that probably look at the three of us and like, what is wrong with you guys? Because my boss, I feel like part of the reason he likes me so much is because we're both so blunt.
No, I think you have to be at that
Yeah.
level. Coach, I got one last one. I'm curious, we're talking about recruiting and those sorts of things. When you're looking at a distance runner, are you looking more so at track performances or cross country, or, it's got to kind of be across the board and what they're going to be able to do for you most bang for your buck?
It's a little bit of everything. I think to me, the valuable pieces to look at in recruiting, um, my favorite one to look at is like your competitive consistency. So, regardless of the race that you're running, are you finishing consistently in the top 1 to 5? If you're going from a state meet to a national meet, are you still competitively consistent with like the marks you're running, or are you leveling up? Like I like to see people who have consistency when they compete, regardless of what that is. There's either a time consistency or a placement consistency. I think that someone in Nebraska is probably going to have a lot less competition than someone in Illinois. And so someone in Illinois, I might be looking at something slightly different than the person in Nebraska. But I value range. I think something we talk about in our development process and something I look for in recruiting is athletes who have range. And if you want to be a great distance runner, you can't be aerobically challenged and you can't be like foot speed challenged, right? And so I am a big believer in developing range. And so I look for people who've already started to develop that. And with the roster limits and the size of our team, um, if we're talking specifically distance running, unless you're like an 800, 1500 meter runner who runs like on the men's side 146 and somewhere in the mid 350s, and on the women's side you're like a two under 205, under 410 type 1500 meter runner, unless you're doing that, then we probably need to see your ability to run cross country. And because those people probably can run cross country, but a pure 815 athlete, you may not need to run in cross country. But I'm never going to recruit someone that's a one-trick pony. Like you have to have the ability to go above and below, honestly, just to handle the demands of training.
Hmm.
Regardless of the competition. Like I'm looking at that to see, can we and then once you're here, what are we working on? Like what's the most glaring issue? Like, and that's going to change year to year. So while we might spend a year working on your strength and then say, all right, well, your strength's at a point where now we got to like put you in some middle distance races and work on your foot speed because you have the strength to finally be there at the end of those races. And to me, that's the puzzle of season to season, year to year with each person is like, all right, we got to basically just like go head on at your weaknesses and figure out how to get better at them because your strengths will stay your strengths, but your weaknesses will only build up more. If you develop your weaknesses, you're only going to develop a broader profile of, skills, and you have more tools in your toolbox. And so, yeah, I really enjoy that part of coaching and recruiting.
Cool.
Kyle, you got time for the final four? Or you gotta
Yeah,
run.
yeah, no, I'm good.
All right. Are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Depending on the morning, I have an espresso machine, so I'm really good at a quick Americano. That is probably like my first homebrew method, just because it's convenient. If I have time on a Saturday morning, I'm an AeroPress or
Yes.
a pour over guy. I was really, really into coffee for a long time. And when I had time, I was, making 3 Chemexes a day. So I'm a huge coffee snob. And then how do I take it? Well, that depends on like what the beans are. And how high
Talking our
how I've roasted.
language.
Yeah, like if it's an AirPress or a Chemex and I've used really nice beans and I've picked out something that I really like, it's black. But I am a cereal. Well, everywhere I've ever lived, I've had a Starbucks on my drive to work, and I'm not a morning person. So a lot of mornings I order my coffee as my like bait to get out of bed. So then it's just milk and sugar, like milk and one sugar.
Okay.
Mostly just to cool it down so I can drink it faster.
All right.
Nice.
What's your preferred roast?
At Starbucks.
No, like when you're getting all fancy with the pour overs.
Medium roast, some sort of medium. I'm a big fan of anything with like a cherry or like a dark berry undertone. or like a hazelnut almond type like undertone. I'm not a huge fan of super acidic coffee. So I don't love like a berry or a citrus or something like a blueberry lemon or something like that. Um, so my aside to this is I don't know how familiar you are with Onyx Coffee in Fayetteville. But they are probably like the top roaster in the country and they've won a million coffee world championships and stuff like that. Well, that was my home coffee shop in college when I went to Arkansas. So I was and Northwest Arkansas in general has an amazing coffee scene. Like it's some of the best roasters I've ever seen are in Northwest Arkansas. Well, when I moved to Columbia, the three things I always do when I move somewhere, I go somewhere. I look up a place to get coffee, a place to get a beer, and a place to go for a run. It's like my three, like whenever I go somewhere, I got to find those three places. And so the coffee shop in Columbia that I go to all the time, I walked in the first day and they had Onyx coffee everywhere. And so I am a snob to Southern weather. If you like really good coffee and you want to order good coffee, Onyx Coffee Southern Weather is probably my favorite. It's their most common one. Um, but that is, you opened a good one there with me. I could go on for a while.
Well, since we're talking here, Kyle, have you ever heard of third wave water?
I have not.
Okay, so you're gonna want to check this out when you get a chance, knowing how much into coffee you are. Third wave water was invented by a guy named Charles Nick. He could never figure out why his coffee didn't taste the same as when he went to his specialty coffee shop. Well,
Hmm.
comes to find out that most high level coffee shops have like a water filtration system, and
Yeah.
they're geared to give you a specific water mineral profile. So
Hmm.
Charles was a NASA scientist. What he did was he found that water profile, dehydrated it, and then you take those minerals and you put them in distilled water, and then you use that with the mineral profile in it to brew your coffee.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
so it comes
I'll
in
write
like a
it down. I gotta order some beans here soon.
comes in like a little element packet. You just pour it in distilled water, and then you use that for your brewing purposes. And I think they have a special one for espresso machines.
They do.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at that.
Kyle, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Kyle Levermore?
I'm a really like I have to I'm a better person when I work out. Like I always say that. Like it clears my head. So I'm pretty big. I've been on a pretty big kick for like the last 2 years of more of like a hybrid training. I think I really enjoy the like progress that I see and the challenge I get out of lifting. And that type of stuff. And then like I'm still like naturally aerobically um good. So I go to the gym every day. And I would say, gosh, what else? That's my big one. Like if I go to the gym and I have a really good dinner, like those are the two things for me that I need. Um, but yeah, I don't have any like weird practices or weird rituals.
Is there a High Rocks in your future?
Yeah, maybe. I think
Oh,
I'd more probably get onto a doubles. I've been asked. I actually like kind of messed up my calf, and so I haven't run in like 6 weeks. So, probably I always say you can't get in shape when it's hot. You have to get in shape when it's cold, so you get to enjoy the good weather. So we're going into the winter. I'll get on the treadmill a bit, and maybe I'll do a high rocks eventually.
let's go.
Awesome. What are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
That's a good song or a good question. Let me tell you what my last Spotify liked song is. In terms of reading or listening, I'm not a huge podcast person. I actually feel like I listen to podcasts if I know the podcast, but I don't like easy listen to podcasts because I feel like I listen to people talk enough. Um, but I will say I'm a big like kind of electric EDM kind of type music person. The song currently queued up because I was listening to it is "Don't Let Me Down" by Somber. But my last liked song is Mercy by Johnny Love, which is just like an EDM type trancey EDM song.
We're from Jersey. We don't pump our gas, we pump our fist.
Ugh, that's the most Jersey thing left about me. I'm gonna go to Seaside Heights and get a t-shirt with that.
That's awesome. Kyle, last one we got to close it out with you. This is a lighthearted one. Maybe it's a unique food item there in Colombia. Maybe it's a beverage. You mentioned one of the things on your list when you relocate is finding a place to get a good beer. Maybe you've got something else going on. Maybe you're a golfer or a fisherman. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. I mean, I've just got a massive sweet tooth. I could give up every bit of sweets in this world, but there's no way you could get me to get rid of ice cream. So I feel like my guilty pleasure, like I don't know if it's even guilty. Like I have ice cream all the time. Guilty pleasure. I'm trying to think like. I mean, if we're talking like convenience and guilty pleasure, like I'm a serial Uber Eatser when I'm lazy. Um, so I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older at like cooking my own food at home. But I'll go on a little bender like this weekend. I just did not feel like cooking and I ordered Uber Eats twice, which, don't tell anyone, even though they now all know.
What's your ice cream of choice? What's your go-to?
Mint chocolate chip. It's been that way since I was a little kid. Like I give up anything. My guilty pleasure is a New Jersey bagel. If I can find me one of those, that's a guilty pleasure.
Amen. With
Uh,
Taylor ham, of course.
yeah, I am a big Taylor ham egg and cheese on everything bagel or just an everything bagel with cream cheese.
That's
If you're ever in Northern Jersey, Bagel Train, which is actually in Suffern, New York, but it's the best bagel you'll ever have.
okay.
All right, put it on the list, Rich.
Yeah, we will.
Coach, thank you so much for your time and insight to the Tigers this evening. Greatly appreciate all the information you share with us, and best of luck in the postseason.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Kyle, it was great to get to know you, get to meet you, chat with you a little bit. We do appreciate your time. Best of luck at SECs, and we'll be rooting for you at regionals, and we'll be watching at nationals. So good luck to
Yeah,
you.
thank you. I appreciate it. We're ready to go.
All right, Tiger style.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go check out the Tigers. Go tell them that the Airey Bros sent you. We will be back on Wednesday with Indiana Wesleyan cross country track and field coach Brody Beeler will be joining us to talk about all things NAIA cross country and track and field.